There isn't a single game that I am more hopeful for than Mario Kart World. Not everyone loves it, but I certainly do. Or at least, I love the idea of what I hope it will become. I played Mario Kart 8 for 10 years, and in that time it saw big changes. It evolved into almost a completely different game. That evolution came at a cost though. Its heaps of additional content would be drip fed to us over the course of many years at a pace that was infinitely slower than a snail. I'm ultimately very happy with the end product, but I hope and pray that Nintendo has learned from this when it comes to Mario Kart World. The foundation for Mario Kart's next massive leap has been laid out. With the controversy that this game has faced ever since its release, Nintendo needs to act fast to turn the tides. But in spite of this, there is still so much to respect about this game. Above all though, I respect that it doesn't betray the formula too much. It's not an open world Mario Kart game, it's Mario Kart with an open world. And nowhere is this more apparent than in Knockout Tour. Knockout Tour hinges entirely on the idea of the open world. Since each track is housed on the same island, they can be driven between with ease. This is a continuous, uninterrupted race where you drive through a significant portion of the map in one go. You'll start off at one track, and whenever you pass through another, you'll also drive through a checkpoint. At each checkpoint, the racers in the bottom 4 positions are eliminated, creating a frantic sense of urgency that encourages players to be strategic and think on their feet. Wins are eternally rewarding, and losses are devastating all the same. It borrows from the Battle Royale craze, but don't get it twisted. Knockout Tour is so much more than just a long Mario Kart race with an elimination mechanic. For instance, items are the bread and butter of Mario Kart. They are so important that they are capable of completely dictating the outcome of a race. Knockout Tours are lengthy, and because of this, item strategies differ quite a bit from standard races. Defensive play is more rewarding here than in any other mode. Since low ranking drivers are eliminated at every checkpoint, one relatively small blow from a banana or shell could be enough to wipe you out of the competition with no chance to catch up again, especially if you took said blow just inches away from a checkpoint. That isn't to say that you should never take a risk and throw a shell in front of you to slow down an opponent, but you should take far more care when doing so than you would in a normal race. However, one of the coolest parts of Knockout Tour's elimination aspect is that as the race goes on, the item pool shrinks significantly. You typically won't see bullet bills past the 3rd checkpoint, and items slowly disappear from then on until we're down to only the bare basics during the final section. Bananas, green and red shells, mushrooms and coins. That's usually it unless somebody decides to carry a star over or something through complete luck. This turns the tides and ensures that only skillful and strategic players will survive until the last couple of checkpoints, putting focus on decision making, strategy and track knowledge instead of cheap tactics like bagging. World changed quite a lot about the item system, and loads of these changes impact Knockout Tour in some really fantastic ways. Bullet bills and lightning are 2 of the most destructive items that the series has to offer. However, they are significantly less destructive than they've been in previous entries. Bullet bills no longer send others spiralling out of control, and lightning only shrinks your opponents for a couple of seconds now. The former has evolved into just being a humongous speed boost, and the latter is now effectively just an item reset for all players. I think that the change to lightning specifically is genius and causes a real panic in players, especially when nearing a checkpoint. Even though players are eliminated frequently, you'll always be given tools that can get you back in the race, provided you use them wisely. For instance, each checkpoint gives you an item box when you pass through no matter what. There's no missing out on a power up because someone grabbed the one in front of you, you are guaranteed one. Everyone is given another strategic option that could potentially turn the tide with each checkpoint completed, and it's fantastic. Dash food appears often as usual, but even more so in Knockout Tour since races are much longer and spend so much more time out in the world itself. They are almost identical to mushrooms, albeit with one crucial difference: they can't dodge blue shells. This makes mushrooms incredibly valuable in Knockout Tour. If you're lucky enough to have one while leading, then holding onto it can be the difference between survival and elimination. A poorly timed blue shell just before a checkpoint, especially in the later stages of a rally, can end your race on the spot. What makes dash food so interesting then, is that they can give front runners many of the benefits of mushrooms without completely removing that vulnerability. You can still use them to take shortcuts and extend your lead, but a blue shell remains a constant threat. It's a clever piece of balancing that creates meaningful decision making throughout a rally. Because dash food appears so frequently, racers near the front are constantly forced to weigh their options. Do you drop a banana that you're holding onto and pick up a dash food for a shortcut later on, or do you play it safe? Neither option is strictly correct, and that's exactly why I love it. Knockout Tour constantly asks players to balance risk against reward, and dash food is a testament to that. As of June 2026, there are 8 unique rallies in the game, and they're all around the same length. You'll start off at one track and drive through 4 more on the way to the final one, with the final section having the 4 remaining races complete a lap of the ending track. You do spend a lot of time racing through intermissions, but each tour usually sees you drive through most of 1 or 2 of the other tracks, which keeps things somewhat refreshing. The Golden Rally, for instance, starts off at Desert Hills and comes to a close at Acorn Heights, and on the way you'll pass through the entirety of Mario Bros Circuit and half of both Moo Moo Meadows and Mario Circuit 3. Not the highest quality of courses the world offers, I know, but I've seen some online act like Knockout Tour is only intermissions, which is simply not true. I actually think that this mode makes the best use of these intermissions, and outside of free roam, the world itself. Yeah, intermissions aren't exactly the most exciting parts of this game. There are some really unique ones, but a lot of them are straightforward highways populated by traffic or windy dirt roads. No matter how you slice it, the main tracks are more interesting to play and are more visually appealing. But with Knockout Tour in particular, I think that the occasional downtime via these intermissions is more than necessary. I'd argue that it's essential. Some of these events already stretch out to around the 10-minute mark. If you were constantly racing on the more complex main racetracks, then I doubt that this mode would work as well and would turn some casual players off, said audience being a sizable portion of this game's target audience. 10 minutes of stressful decision making via item strategies and a constant use of grinding, wall riding and charge jumping will appeal to some. It even appeals to me. But Nintendo was smart to emphasise intermissions because of their more relaxed feel. They are, by design, more reliant on item RNG than a lot of the actual tracks because of the frequency of mushroom shortcuts that you can take across grass and the like. But this is counterbalanced by World's already crazy item balancing. It's a bit weird to say that I'm okay with more luck-based segments after praising the hell out of how Knockout Tour breathes new life into the idea of item strategy, but for this mode to work I think there needed to be some downtime, and I'm happy that it's provided here. The Spiny Rally, for instance, is the weakest on offer in my opinion, fitting since it seems to be the one that gets picked the most online. Beginning at Boost Cinema and taking you all the way to Wario Shipyard, you don't drive through many if any interesting segments of the racetracks, and the intermissions are easily some of the game's most uninspired. Thankfully this is the only tour I'd say I outright dislike. The Ice Rally has a good number of obstacles to dodge which only increases as you approach Crown City, which hosts the final lap. The road to the final checkpoint may be straightforward, but the addition of vehicles to dodge, along with the tension of a potential item knocking you out right at the end, is effective to say the least. I enjoy the Golden Rally's frequency of power lines that you can use to grind on and stay above the majority of the pack, avoiding more items. It's a fun way to add some decision making into one of the more simple rallies that persists for a good portion of the race. The Moon Rally has a pretty boring beginning segment where you drive from the top of Bowser's Castle all the way to the bottom near Toad's factory, which is about a minute of driving almost completely straight with 0 ways to overtake besides good luck with items. After this though, it becomes one of the more interesting rallies to play. You enter the cave in Dandelion Depths in reverse, take an alternate exit, and follow a stream all the way to the end of a waterfall which you jump off to enter Cheap Cheap Falls in style. The atmosphere becomes more tense as you venture into the savannah portion of the map, leading up to Faraway Oasis, the ending track of this rally. I do think that the final track plays a sizable part in the overall impact of any rally. When the track is good, it makes for a skillful, strategic and nail-biting finale. Great Question Block Ruins, DK Pass and Faraway Oasis are already fantastic courses, made even better with the added pressure that each player faces at the end of a rally. But Desert Hills is probably the worst track that they could have chosen as a finisher. If you carry mushrooms here, you will win most of the time because of how easy it is to boost across the sand, outrunning everyone. I have the same issue with the final turn just before you enter Faraway Oasis. Having mushrooms leading up to this section will guarantee you a place in the final 4 and it sucks. So then, we have a fresh new game mode that makes incredible use of both the open world and the actual racetracks. We have a new approach to item play that rewards both defensive play and calculated risks. And what we're left with is, for me and many others, the best way to play Mario Kart World. Unfortunately though, there is one thing holding Knockout Tour back from reaching its full potential. Simply put, it lacks the sense of player expression that exists throughout the rest of the game. The fact that there is no option to play a Grand Prix with no intermissions is already quite overkill, but I give it a pass since Versus mode acts as a custom Grand Prix mode. Knockout Tour doesn't get that luxury though. A year after launch, there are still only 8 playable rallies. This stuns me because of how easy it would be to add more. It isn't like Nintendo has to design any more tracks. All of the intermissions in this mode are already pre-existing. I imagine it would be very simple to implement a feature that lets us make our own rallies. Versus mode already lets you pick any of the over 200 total intermissions, so why doesn't a custom knockout tour mode exist? You are just as limited as you are in Grand Prix. Whenever I play in Versus, I always play with custom items to exclude the ones that I don't like. I can't do that in Knockout Tour, so cheap and lazy items like the Mega Mushroom and Fire Flower end up giving people the upper hand when they don't deserve it, the former especially. Even with the addition of a custom rally mode, people who don't like the intermissions still won't be too pleased. So I have an idea. Last year's Sonic Racing Cross Worlds had a race type where you would do a 3-lap race, but each lap would take place on a different course. There were no breaks and you would enter the new track through a portal at the end of a lap. It flowed really well, and World could easily steal this feature for Knockout Tour and make it into an alternate mode. It would be tiring for sure, but I think that it would be a big hit, especially for competitive players. And speaking of competitive play, when racing online, rallies are chosen at complete random with no voting system. What's worse is that some rallies are better suited to specific character classes. The Golden Rally has minimal sharp turns, so heavyweights are going to excel. But if you go with a lightweight, you'll probably be at some kind of disadvantage. Balanced characters are often the best options for online since you don't have to hedge your bets either way. It's irritating that you're basically entering the lottery when playing online, and it can make both light and heavyweight builds obsolete for me unless I'm playing offline and can choose my own rally. Knockout Tour is like Mario Kart World incarnate. It's a fantastic idea with fleshed out gameplay that brings something new to the table, but it also restricts players, limiting their enjoyment for no other reason than to force people to play Nintendo's way. If Knockout Tour had customizable routes and item sets, then I truly believe that this could become the definitive way to experience Mario Kart World. But for now, I can only dream. I love this game, and I'll continue to pour hours into it while wishing that Nintendo would allow us the freedom to play how we want to. But until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.